found that as my Chinese got better, my friendships got deeper. Especially with living away from our friends and family back in our own country, you're going to feel lonely anyway. But I think it's important to maybe learn the language so you can express your feelings if you're missing home, or have a really nice conversation, or chat to your friend if they've got a problem. I think it built relationships to a more deeper level, and that was really important, I think, especially if we're living abroad.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Learn Chinese Insights podcast, brought to you by ChineseTrack.com. Every week we interview expats from around the world who have learned Chinese as a second language to find out how they learned it and how it benefits them in day-to-day life. So with me today, I'm happy to have a friend of mine, Amy Rattinger.
Hello.
And today we're here at her beautiful restaurant, Bridge Shake in Danshui, Taiwan. So before we begin, Amy, can you give us a quick introduction in Chinese?
Of course, yeah. 大家好，我是 Amy。那我住台湾大概14年多。那为什么我住台湾呢？就是因为我老公是台湾人。那我们大概15年前就是在北京认识的。然后我在台湾有开2间餐厅。
All right, very nice. And we're in one of those restaurants here.
Welcome.
So she mentioned she's been in Taiwan, 15 years?
15 years now, yeah. The time has gone so fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned you met your husband in Beijing.
That's right. Yeah. So about
Go ahead, please.
2 years ago, I was traveling in Beijing with a friend. That time I could not speak any Chinese at all. It just where's the toilet and, how much, this basic stuff, I met my husband in I think it was in like a hostel, like a bar. We were playing like cards. We needed one more person to play cards with us. So I saw my husband was across the bar and I just said, would you like to play cards with us? That time he couldn't speak any English. I couldn't speak any Chinese. I just felt he was a nice person, you don't have to speak. We're just happy and it was nice, And so we exchanged MSN. That was a long time ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
MSN. And then I went back to England. We were still friends. Nothing went on, just friends. I went back to England. He went back to Taiwan. And then we just messaged on MSN for the next 6 months. He decided 6 months later to come to England to learn English. I think that was the excuse.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year later, we got engaged. And then a few months after that, I came to Taiwan because I thought I'd better meet my future mother and father-in-law, right?
So when you came here, was it your plan to continue living here?
Actually, no. We originally said I'd probably come for 1 year and then see how it went, really. Yeah, because obviously I wanted to see where he came from and his part of the world and meet all his friends and family. But I think a lot of foreigners would say the same thing, that you come here for a year and it ends up catching you by the heart and you just stay here for,
For sure.
15 years now. Yeah.
So at what point did you decide that, okay, I want to learn Chinese at a high level?
I think quite early on, because I realized my mother and father-in-law couldn't speak a word of English. And of course, I wanted that relationship with them, to get to know them in depth. And also, I found the first couple of years quite lonely because I could speak basic conversation, but I couldn't in depth explain what I was feeling and make deep, meaningful friendships and things like that. So I think that was a big push for me to just start learning. The biggest push was opening a restaurant because I was in Taiwan a year. We decided to open a night market stall. It was fine when it was me and my husband, but when he left and I was by myself, I had to face the customers. And sometimes it was awkward. And I thought, I can't, be like a service to people and I can't speak their language.
Yeah.
And then when we started to have staff that couldn't speak English, I had to find a way. I was a boss. I had to find a way to speak to them, So that was a big push for me, I think.
Okay. So what was your initial approach to learn?
So at that time, I was quite busy with the restaurant because we just started the restaurant. So I went to Shidan only for 3 months and learned the basics. But after that, I was kind of on my own because I didn't have time to have classes. And at that time, opening a business, couldn't really afford to. So I met lots of language exchange partners online. But I didn't find that the best way, to be honest, because most of them, their English was really high level and my Chinese was so basic. We ended up speaking mostly English. Maybe it's not for everybody. So I just thought to myself, okay, I don't have much free time, but how can I learn? So I thought, what do I enjoy doing? So I enjoy watching movies and I enjoy listening to music. So when I would get off work, I would watch lots of movies and I really love the Hong Kong movies, like 80s, 90s movies. So I would watch a lot of Andy Lau movies in Chinese version. and just watch them really slowly, pause it, and what's he talking about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I found this way for me was quite beneficial because it was fun,
Yeah.
and it was stuff that I could use in my daily life. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then did you get into characters at all at that point?
Oh yeah. So that I kind of taught myself. I think when you've been in Taiwan for a while, you kind of on the MRT and things like that, and you kind of notice, oh, what does that word mean? And I would just like write it down and then show my husband, ask him
Yeah.
what that meant. I did buy a book actually just to teach you basic characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really study it in depth, but the same thing again with me having the restaurant. That's when lines started to be a thing. Everyone started messaging online, WhatsApp, and I couldn't. For me, I didn't want to write in English,
Right.
and so I would just start it with Google Translate. I'll write a message and then translate it, put it on the line message, and then my staff was so sweet. They'd be like, "That doesn't make any sense. You can write it like this. You can write it like this." You know. So I kind of Google was a good friend at the beginning.
So basically, just whatever vocabulary you need to know at that time, you'll kind of learn it.
That's right. Yeah.
Just
So
go
what
from
was
there.
most immediate? Yeah. So but then I would just read their messages, and I think it was just literally trying to absorb everything I could that was around me. And the great thing about being in Taiwan is that you can do that. You know, if you just, you know, whether you're out and about or you just hear people speaking on the MRT, you can kind of figure out what they're talking about. And I think for me, you have to have a drive, I think. You know what I mean? You have to have a reason why you want to learn.
Right.
So for me, it was the business and also to get in-depth conversation with friends.
Right. So writing characters you never bothered with.
I did. Yeah, I did. So I can't, and I don't know about now because now it's all line and it's all online, isn't it? But if I had to write, I guess I could do, but it'd be very, very slow, very slow. So I did. I got a few books, and when I'd have free time, probably just do, you know, like in the guo and things like that.
Right.
And just copy the characters and things. And I think I'd already got that basic knowledge from Shida as well. Like at that time we had to just do characters.
Stroke order and
Definitely, yeah. So I think basically at that time it was stuff that I needed, like restaurant vocabulary and day-to-day Chinese that I'll probably need to use.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have a particular process you go through where if you learn a new word, how do you go from this is the first time you've seeded to committing into memory?
So yeah, if there's a new word, then I'll try like straight away to incorporate into like either a message to a friend, or I think that's the best way for me because I think we forget quite easily, right, as humans sometimes. So I think if I learn a new word, I'll try my best straight away to use it, even if it's not really needed. I'll probably say a sentence to my husband. He's like, "That's so out of the blue," but I'm like, "Yeah, but I needed to get that into a sentence to start learning it, you know." So, and also I find like connecting, I think Chinese is pretty good because you can connect it to like an English word. Like, for example, like ni hao will be like your knee, or, you know, I did that quite a lot. I would always like,
Use mnemonic.
yeah. So for me, I'd always like write, some words are easy to remember, but other words are really difficult. And with those words, I would try and associate it with a situation like you just said. Yeah.
Yeah. How about tones? Like from the beginning was there a process for getting good with that?
To be honest, I didn't actually focus on the tone at all. And I think it's come with just being here for a while, like for a long time. You kind of hear when that tone is right and that tone is wrong. I don't know about yourself with Chinese, but I think for me, I didn't focus on it too much as long as I was understood. And I think it depends on how you hear it. I didn't have enough time to just focus on all the tones and all the things like that. But for me, I think if you're immersed in the culture and every day you hear this tone, you just know when it's right. Yeah, you know that tone sounds wrong. Or sometimes I will correct myself. I'll say a word and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, that sounds wrong. That's the wrong tone." I couldn't tell you which tone it is, but I just know when it sounds wrong. Yeah, are you the same?
Yeah. For me, initially when I was learning, I would learn a word and then say, "Okay, and what tone is that?" So it was kind of two pieces of information. And then I found that sometimes I'd remember the word, but not the tone. But then over time, just like you said, as you stay here longer, they kind of get fused together.
Right.
Now, when you hear a word, you hear it with the tone. And when you're saying it, you're just saying it the way you heard. So just like you said, if you're asked, what tone is it? Well, I'd have to stop and think about it.
Exactly. You have to literally think, right? Yeah. So I think that's a good way. I think a lot of people, I think you've got a lot of time to learn Chinese. That's great. And if you haven't got something that's pushing you like really quickly to learn it, by all means, like go through the process of learning the tones, you know, and doing it slowly and learning. I mean, that's great. And then from the word go, you've got perfect Chinese. But I guess like myself, I didn't have time. Maybe people don't have time. So I really think just get the words out there and get practicing. That is the main thing. And then the more you speak, because I think from coming from like a non-tonal language like ourselves, and then going to like learning Chinese, I think that for me that was the most difficult part.
Right.
Because also I find, I don't know about you, but sometimes at the beginning, like I could just say a sentence and everyone would understand it. But some people were really particular about the tones, and if you don't say it right, they're like, I don't understand what you're talking about.
Right.
Even if you said the perfect, like
Exactly.
grammatically structured sentence, if the tone is off,
Yeah.
you'll find not everybody, but 1 in 10, they're like,
Yeah.
nope, don't understand what you're talking.
That happened. Or I'll say a word, so we have no idea what to found. But then in the end, they're like, "Oh, you mean this?" And they say the same thing.
Yeah. So I think that was a little bit of a
Whereas the
difficult.
foreigner could say a whole sentence with no tones. I'm like, I know exactly what to say.
Exactly, yes. That was the frustrating part at the beginning. You kind of like, I wasn't sure I've just said that right.
Right.
So yeah, I guess the tones are really important, but I think don't stress on it so much because most people that I've met kind of see you're a foreigner and they're like, yeah, I can guess that's what they mean. This is it. This is the context. So,
Exactly.
and most people are great, are lovely. They know you're trying to learn. So I think
Right.
don't give yourself too much pressure when you're trying to learn the tones.
Mhm. So you mentioned obviously that the being able to speak Chinese helps you with your business. So how about in daily life? Is it beneficial?
Definitely. I think it helps immensely because I really like to go in to like really local restaurants, off the beaten track, that kind of thing. And a lot of the time, like there's a lot of like aunties, uncles in there and they can't speak any English at all. So I think especially for eating, you get more of a broader range of like the foods here and delicacies that you maybe wouldn't find in tourist areas. And you get to speak to the people at the restaurant and see what's special and all that kind of thing. And I think, yeah, day-to-day life is, for example, going into the bank and it's just easier. You don't have to worry about, oh, could this be English? And am I going to say the right thing? Because money and numbers you don't want to mess around with, right? Also, yeah, friendships as well. I found that as my Chinese got better, my friendships got deeper. Especially with living away from our friends and family back in our own country. You're going to feel lonely anyway, but I think it's important to maybe learn the language so you can express your feelings if you're missing home or have a really nice conversation or chat to your friend if they've got a problem. I think it built relationships to a more deeper level. And that was really important, I think, especially if we're living abroad.
All right. So when you first came to Taiwan, did you do any teaching?
I did, yes, for the first year, because I come from a restaurant background. So originally I thought, okay, I'll find a job at a restaurant. But because of the fast pace of kitchens, I couldn't speak Chinese. I didn't want to slow it down. A lot of places would be like, no, you need fluent Chinese. And of course, I understand that. And so I thought, okay, I could teach English. So I taught English at like a kindergarten, yeah, for the first year. Obviously to support myself. I did a few one-on-ones as well in the evening. And that was until the third year, I think. But then I realized, I think A, it was not my passion. Because I've always been really into food and I think it's really important to do something you love. And B, I'm not a trained English teacher, so I was good for like the kindergarten and things like that, but often I'd have some advanced students who I found English was better than mine sometimes. And they'd ask me a few grammatical questions, and because I wasn't trained as an English teacher, and as a native speaker, we're not actually taught grammatical structures really, we just know how to say them. So I kind of thought, nah, I'm just going to, go back to my passion and go from there. Yeah.
As an expat trying to start a business in Taiwan, is it simple or harder? Or how would you describe that?
I think, so for me, I was very fortunate because my husband's obviously Taiwanese. So at the beginning, initially, he would take care of all the, all the tax and all the financial stuff because that would be too hard for me to understand in Chinese and things. So he's been great. He hangs up most of the business part because he loves to do that too. But I think obviously there's cultural differences as well. So when you're leading a team, possibly in England, I found people here are maybe not as direct, maybe. Yeah, so maybe I would use my like British way of leading a team in Taiwan. For example, in the UK, if I said to someone, oh, that's all right, you could do a bit better, they'd be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I should do better, but in Taiwan, I found myself, oh, yeah, it's okay, yeah, that's okay. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, it's okay. It's differences of language I found and also I found they're very polite in Taiwan. Like in England, I say to my staff, okay, it's time to go home now. You can like duck out or whatever. But in Taiwan, they're really embarrassed about that too, and they'd be like probably working for an extra half an hour and things like that. And I had to get used to it. I just thought, okay, this is Taiwan. They do things differently, and they do that because they want the boss to be happy, this kind of thing. But I found them to be incredibly sweet because when I first opened the restaurant here, my Chinese I was still learning, so I had to create all the SOPs, all the recipes in Chinese.
Mhm.
And a lot of it was Google Translate, And it was, I look back now and I was like, that makes no sense. And it was so sweet. They would just be like trying to correct and ask me more questions about what that was. And I just find Taiwanese staff are just so nice, and they're so accepting that you're a foreigner, and they will try and help you with that learning journey. For me, it's been great in that respect. So I can't say for the business side I've had too much involvement. I've found, obviously, my husband was the local that helped me with that. But most of my stuff was with teaching the staff and leading the staff and obviously creating menus and things like that. Yeah.
I think there's the concept of not wanting to lose space.
Yeah.
So they feel if they want to criticize you or something, you will lose space. So therefore, they don't say anything.
It's so sweet. Yeah, I think it was so. But in England, they'd be like, that's wrong. Like what are you saying that for? But I really liked that as well because it made things a lot easier. Because of course I was nervous. I didn't want to lead my team, in the wrong way and things like that. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It's a lot about face. Yeah.
But then how do you get around that? Because sometimes you want actual feedback, right?
Yes.
And you want them to be direct.
It's a really good
is there
question.
Have you figured that
I
out?
have to keep hammering at them. So for example, we have staff, maybe they have the problem and that they've got a problem. You can feel it, and that they've had a get argument with somebody else in the team. But when you approach them, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. But and then 1 week later they hadn't noticed it.
Right.
So I've learned now just to keep at them, right, and just keep saying, you can tell me, I know I'm your boss, but and try and make them feel comfortable, and just keep asking, and just please. And I'll say to them, if you tell me that, then I can be a better boss and this business will be better. And obviously you want the business to be better, right? I use this kind of way to talk to them. And then I find they open up,
Right.
I find they really will. If you keep asking them the right questions. I've learned over the years to, try and melt their heart and try and say, it's okay, you can be yourself. I'm not going to be angry if you tell me this isn't right for you or something like that. So yeah, I think it just comes with learning your different culture. Yeah.
And I find the same even with, because you mentioned earlier doing language exchanges or teachers, where sometimes you want them to criticize your tones but they're being too polite. So yeah, that's good enough. It's like, no.
Right. Then you find a mistake in your own thing. You're like, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
That's working for me, right? Yeah. So you're right, because then you also learn the wrong thing too. You think if they said it's okay, then that's okay. And then you learn it in a different, you say it to someone else and they're like, that doesn't make any sense, So you're right, yeah. You need someone that's going to be critical, right? Yeah.
Right. Especially even early on when you mentioned that there'll be that one person in 10 who doesn't understand your tone.
Yeah.
Because I think some Taiwanese, the type of people who hang out with foreigners and stuff, they kind of adjust so they can understand the foreign Chinese. Whereas there might be some locals who don't.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. And they don't understand if you got the wrong grammar in a sentence, what you're trying to get at, and I think that's so true as well. Yeah.
All right. So looking back on your journey as far as the learning Chinese goes, is there anything you would have done differently that you think would have made the process more efficient?
I think, actually, I do think possibly earlier on, I might have just got like a 1-by-1 tutor, like the first year. I know I didn't have time to go to class, but at that time I could have maybe got a tutor just to guide me more. And it would have been a lot quicker and easier, I guess, when opening the restaurant. And I wouldn't, it would take a lot of time off, I think. I really think that my husband is great, but because we're so used to speaking in English, sometimes he would just want me to get my point across. When we're doing business and stuff, at the beginning, a lot of it was English, so I just didn't learn with him, And so earlier on, maybe I've got a tutor or gone to classes if I could have, and just maybe at the beginning got it all set out. Okay, my Chinese is perfect now, and then I can go from there. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I think I've done it. Like I said, I don't believe my Chinese is 100% perfect because I didn't go to class. Because I learned, sometimes I know my grammar is wrong as well. People tell me it's wrong. But I think, to be honest, as long as you're understood, I think that's okay. But if I was to do it again, I would go back and probably do a year in Shida or something, if I could. Yeah.
Usually your partner doesn't make a good tutor.
No. No.
Okay, well, on that note, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
All right, thanks.